For a lot of people coming into New Zealand, this is the first river that they are associating themselves with.
The Shotover Jet trip is amazing. It's one of the most iconic jet boat trips in the world.
To say it's exciting, well, that's just putting it mildly.
You don't really think of that until you get reminded of it in the boat. How this has been on their bucket list for the past 20 or 30 years, not just come to New Zealand, but to ride the world famous Shotover Jet.
Part of the trip is that you don't tell anybody what you're doing, really, isn't it? No, that's part of it.
All you'd see is us going under the bridge. So they never had a clue. So you could stand on that bridge going, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. But they didn't see what was to come.
And there's some fairly explosive reactions when they get off, which we couldn't repeat.
Right, now when I say hang on, you've all got to hang on, okay?
Shotover Jet was the tourism activity that everybody had to do. It was the icon.
It still is.
Our acquisition of the Shotover Group enabled us to have command of our own heritage.
It's one of those experiences that you remember forever.
This is where the story of our freshwater starts. From when the first piece of snow touched the tops of our mountains, and the snow turned to moisture, and the moisture turned to water, and the water filled the upper lakes, flowing ki to ki tai, from which bore all life. Ko wai te tōtō te whenua. The water is the blood of the land. If you put yourself in the mindset of our tupuna that named this place Kimiākau, it is to seek the coast, to seek well-being, to seek connection. It's all in the name.
The Kimiākau is an integral part of our identity and our relationship with the wider region here. So it's part of our ancient trails, ngā tawhito, that our tupuna, our old people used to traverse for mahinga kai, and they did that on waka. So for us, being able to see the life that's in and around the Kimiākau and seeing our people work, live on this awa, albeit in a contemporary fashion, it just maintains that connection. So it's of immense significance historically, but it's of immense significance contemporarily as well.
Shotover Jet's fortunate enough to operate on the Kimiākau River in the section that runs through two canyons. Canyons at times are barely wider than the boat itself.
Shotover Jet's definitely the jewel in the crown for the Ngāi Tahu Tourism Group.
Kia ora, are you checking in this morning?
Yes.
Yeah.
We welcome probably the most manahiri through its doors. It was the first tourism experience that was purchased by Ngāi Tahu, so it was the evolution of Ngāi Tahu tourism.
Shotover Jet was started by the Malahops from Invercargill.
From where they are now, that's where they started back in 1965, I think it was. My father's interest in jet boats was that he was blown away by the concept of having this jet of water coming out instead of a prop. He actually sold them from his business in Invercargill. And I remember that they said, this Shotover River, let's explore that one day. And it just all just blossomed from there. They went down from the wharf down to Tucker's Beach, then came back and then went up the river to the tunnel because they could go no further.
They had it for 1 year and then it was taken over by Herm Palmer and he had it for 4 years.
My dad became a mechanic for the Malhop brothers. He later on became a driver. He went relatively close to the rocks, because I think it was quite adventuresome, but comparatively, maybe he ran the centre of the river a bit more than some of them do. When they sold it, they were actually getting some bookings from overseas. Back in that period of time, that was quite unusual, I believe, for the area.
Everyone's heard of Rotorua, its mud pools, its geysers. That's dependable old Pahutu letting off steam again.
When we took over in 1970, Rotorua was the main part of New Zealand tourism.
You'll enjoy the attraction of Rotorua's thermal area and its Maori people.
Queenstown was just something in the background.
A few moments by air and you're in the Queenstown area. Contrast. Contrast in things to see, contrast in places to go, and especially contrast in things to do. Lively things to do. Jet boating on the Shotover River, for instance.
I went down through the centre of the river. Then I used to stop and say something nice. But before I started, this woman, she started. She had been down last year. It was much more thrilling. This was absolutely second rate. I had to upgrade the boat trip just to stop her moaning. Now, that night, Heather and I decided from now on we'll go as close to the rocks as we possibly can. That woman, aged 73, changed the whole tactics of Shotover Jet. The boat was taking about 3,200 people up and down the river. The first year we were here, we doubled that, and then we built the big red boats.
It was very difficult to judge the distances of the sides of the boat in relation to the rocks. So Trevor put these little rubber things on the side of the boat. As far as Trevor was concerned, you know, if we weren't touching those rubber things on the rocks, we weren't doing our job properly. And you'd come in on the most suicidal angle. You'd slide right into it. You wouldn't stop sliding till you're about that far away from it. We'd go round that corner and hang the nose of the boat over dry land. And you see their feet up like that.
It wasn't more the fright, it was more the thrill of it.
There were other jet boat operators. In fact, when I bought the business, I think there were 11 or 12 different jet boat businesses in Queenstown. It was certainly the adventure tourism activity. Bungee jumping came along later, and yeah, that was really cool. We came up with a rather clumsy tagline, the only company permitted to operate in the Shotover canyons. That sort of said, oh, well, we're a bit different. This is the one to go with.
The river was so crystal clear. You know, there was huge rocks and you'd be scooting across the top of them and people would just be loving it.
You could tell whether it was a good ride by the pitch of the screams going past my window.
You could see fingernail marks on the tops of the seats where people had to hang on.
Shotover Jet became and is an iconic Queenstown attraction, and it has put Queenstown and New Zealand Aotearoa on the map.
We bought it in '86 and sold out in 2001. We also started Hawker Jet in Taupo, and yeah, very much part of our lives.
We were very interested in the tourism industry and participation in it. And then we encountered Jim Bolt, and Jim had the very great benefit in his life of having married a Ngāi Tahu woman. Therefore, he was safe to engage with, and he and I progressively developed a deal, which was done almost entirely on handshakes, but it included the Shotover Jet, the Hooker Jet, the Suva Jet, Rainbow Springs, a whole bundle of assets which we ended up purchasing.
It led to a friendship that we've had that's gone on all those years, and you know, I'd count him as, apart from my wife and children, the most fabulous person in the whole world.
The decision to buy shares initially, whilst it was still a public company, was a decision that I helped make. Our vision was always to actually own the business outright, and it was a struggle, but we managed to get there, and I'm very proud of our people for making that decision.
Our focus was really on acquiring a platform in the industry where we could introduce people to who we were and what we were doing. And Jim Bolt is one of the most important characters in our history.
Love the stuff. Amazing.
These are incredible, aren't they?
That's probably you.
Yeah, that is me.
When was that?
Last week. I know, this must be the 80s. When the branding was red and pink.
Oh, it's amazing, eh? So 60 years. I've been here for 2 years.
It's only a small
So
chunk of the
I'm
60,
like
eh?
just a tiny bit.
How's it feel?
It's good. It's quite narrow up here. Wouldn't want too long legs. And
the boys would stop at Big Beach and pull out their ciggies and have a smoke.
Yeah, that's what Trevor was telling us. Like, literally, that was his idea. As part of the design was to have a cigarette lighter. Over the years, the boats have evolved, but I think one thing that stayed the same the whole way through is the driving team and the characters that we have behind the wheel. And I could almost guarantee some of the drivers we've got now be very similar personalities to the drivers you had back in the day.
In those days,
Yeah.
The boys used to compete against each other.
Oh, yes.
To see who could get closest to the rocks.
Yeah.
Getting close to the rocks initially is quite intimidating when you're first learning, but it's all in the drive style, and that's the thing with these boats, the way they slide towards something, redirect the steering wheel, and then it's pulling you away. It's just controlling from point to point.
Putting a show on every day and driving down the river, buzzing rocks, doing spins off rocks, seeing new drivers come through and training them, watching them develop, like that's what makes me proud.
Yeah, I think all the drivers, as lovely as they come across, all of them have got a little bit of mongrel on them, and they have to deal with the boats, to deal with the passengers.
Advertising for drivers, we would get 150 applications. It was the coolest job.
Talking to Trevor, he said he preferred to hire people back in the day with no previous experience, which funnily enough has carried on all these years, and this is the way we still like to do it, so we don't bring any of their bad habits onto the job, and everything they know, we teach them.
So that's an Oldsmobile? The motive power for the jet boat is a big-throated 10 gallons an hour gas-guzzling Oldsmobile V8. Each craft is equipped with a two-way radio so that they know where each craft is when travelling through the numerous gorges.
If you wanted to produce a piece of equipment to test engines and components to their limit, you would come up with a jet boat.
That's why we put so much emphasis on our driver training. 120 hours with an instructor.
Let's have a look at our sheet, see what we can mark off as we're going. So it's all no to those.
Right up to obtaining a New Zealand commercial jet boat river licence, and then we do a lot of monitoring with them after that. But it's all about safety, it's all about looking after themselves and our manahiri.
Rightio. So we're working through our check sheet here.
If we find any issues, we call up our workshop and get them to come down and have a look at it. You know, potentially if there's something that's wrong with the boat will have to go back up and they'll have to repair it. We might have to grab another boat. Or it might just be something that can be easily fixed down here before we get underway.
To ensure that what they are doing is as safe as possible relies on a high level of confidence and a high level of ability in what we do as a technical team. And that's driven by the systems we have, it's driven by the team we have, the culture. There are so many factors that lead into that. Essentially, we adopted what the aircraft industry use. The same principles that a plane would use, we apply to the boats. Every critical component has a specified life limit, so that component is then tracked against the operational hours of the boat. How we approach everything in the workshop, how we approach everything on the river. It's all about safety. It helps ensure that the drivers have the utmost confidence in the boats, all to produce a trip with a jet boat screaming down a canyon at rocks. What we do is madness down there.
Some days you had to muscle the old boats around. That's the only way they'd work, and it became an art.
The boats handle amazingly, to be honest. I've driven all sorts of different jet boats, but these boats, just the way they're designed, the way they slide on the water, the sort of tricks and that you can get up to with them, yeah, it's a great feeling actually.
So one of the most advanced moves here at Shotover Jet is the 360 spin. We're going to come up middle of the river, we check on where we want to land, we set the boat to the right, hold a nice drift. Once the boat's settled, we go hard left, give it full throttle and basically hope for the best.
The hull that we have now, the twin engines, they do 360s, 540s.
Yeah.
And something that we don't advertise, they even do 720s if you're going fast enough.
Once you've done a few spins and understand where the boat goes, it's pretty easy. Can get stuck if you don't do it right, but I've been stuck a couple of times. Not that many times, but I've been stuck.
You ever drove the boats?
No.
No?
No.
Never tended?
No.
What are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah.
If you think about the whakapapa of the river, where it's come from, pre-Māori, the time when our tipuna came through here during colonisation, over 30,000 people through here at one point mining gold. And right now we're at this phase where we're all coming together just thinking about this is where we've all come from, but look at all the opportunity we have where we can go.
One of the reasons I came to Shotover Jet, one of the reasons I came to Ngāi Tahu, because it was well known that they lived by their values, wasn't just stickers on the wall. The hard journey was how do you start to put some authentic cultural narrative into a product like Shotover.
Growing up, I obviously knew I was Ngāi Tahu, but didn't really know too much about it. But since starting at Shotover Jet, I've actually learned a lot about my history and my family roots. We talk about the Kimiākau River and we try and bring as much as we can into it, and we do actually get a lot of questions about Ngāi Tahu and Ngāi Tahu tourism as well.
Well, I think our team here I'm encouraged by the fact that many of them understand the importance of this river to us and the importance of the valley to us.
Shotover was not like running any other business. I've had quite a few businesses in the time, and it was completely different because you were totally dependent on what the weather decided to do.
At the moment we're seeing the lowest river levels for possibly more than 20 years, which have meant our boats have struggled to be able to operate some days. Parts of the river are only a few centimetres deep, but fortunately the boat drivers are skilled enough to safely operate. And then at times the river floods and the entire jetty and half our infrastructure is underwater for several days.
I can recall one time we had 6 weeks where we didn't put a boat in the water because the river would go into flood, it would just start to come down and it would rain again. But it just brought it home to me how dependent we are on the environment in which we operate in.
We like to present a nice, clean, green-looking river, and we take guardianship of that very seriously. And we're also under the spotlight from the local community from how we do treat the river.
Sustainability is incredibly important. You know, we understand we've got to have a viable business, we've got to have a successful business, but it doesn't mean we have to discard those things that are important to us as an iwi. So manaakitanga, kaitiakitanga, our obligations to the awa is first and foremost. So ensuring that we're doing things in the cleanest, greenest way possible, in the most sustainable way possible is paramount to how we operate our businesses and how we evolve into the future.
How this river feels is how this operation goes, because without Kimiākau, there is no Shotover Jet.
If you're using the whenua, if you're using the awa to sustain yourself economically, what's the give back?
The environmental challenges that we're up against, we need to use, the technology that is evolving very fast in our present time.
The environmental tourism is going to be interesting in the future because it's starting to build. We've got electric boats, we've got hydrogen possibilities in the future, and we just have to be a little smarter.
If I could wave a magic wand, I'd have a full fleet of electric jet boats. We wouldn't burn any fossil fuels anywhere in the business.
It wasn't until the day where we were up in Glenorchy, we put it on the lake and we put our foot down and the boat started moving. It was like Christmas morning as a small child.
Today was just something totally different. It was a new concept that we've introduced into the market. It's a pretty good moment, actually.
It needs a wee bit more work, but I think long term it's definitely a possibility. And it's going to be financially a lot better and environmentally definitely a lot better. No-brainer, really.
It was almost like driving boats for the first time again, not having the sound of the engines, hearing more of the water around you. It was pretty cool.
It's what we need to do to secure our future for future generations. It's going to take bold moves and it's going to take big commitments like this to make it happen.
The challenge stopping us doing that right now is literally the weight of batteries, and we can't build a boat light enough. But that'll change and we'll be able to move forward.
When we're coming down this beautiful river system, what are we looking at? What are we seeing? What are we experiencing? And what should be there? We have actually suffered a whole lot of biodiversity loss up here that a lot of people wouldn't know about. We still had kakapo in the basin in the late 1800s. There's a lot of Kimiākau up here. We still had weka. We've still got freshwater coda just down the road. I'd love to come down this river and see Mountain Beach and Tōtara overhanging. I'd love to see Po Whenua as we're coming down the river and stories being woven into the way that the business is operating.
Well, I would love them to do that. Every time I see a hill covered with pines, no matter how beautiful and pruned and decorated and barbered they are, I still regard them an incursion on the native cover. What Jana and co are doing, replanting these hills in this region, I think is God's work.
Yeah.
We've got to keep moving, we've got to keep navigating, you know. We're on our journey and we're going to keep working with the communities into the future to try and make a difference. It's a lifetime thing.
Seeing our young people coming through and seeing themselves as part of this business, seeing themselves as jet boat drivers, as engineers, as marketers, salespeople, that's really important to me.
We're very, very proud of this business. It's effectively and efficiently run, and these guys and girls, they just live for this place.
I think it's great, absolutely great, and it's so much better than the way it used to be.
I was never happier than when I saw photos of red boats, white water and smiling faces. It was a complete buzz.
Whatever the challenges are, it's just being open and honest with ourselves and holding the mirror up to ourselves and making sure that we aren't just spinning a good yarn, that we actually walk the talk, and that our businesses and the way we operate is grounded in who we are as Ngāi Tahu and who we are as New Zealanders and what's important to us all.
I'm super proud of the work we do here, and the way to quantify that is you see it on the faces of the people that hop out of the boat. I see it on the faces of our new staff members coming through that we train up. So I'd actually like to think my children at some point in the future will be working here as well.
Pump all the adrenaline you like up the river, noisy though it may be, because it's one of the big steps we made and we should cherish it. And I hope we continue to do so.
I'd like them to come for a jet boat ride saying Shotover Jet, and I would like them to leave saying the name of the river, Kimiākau.